home office in Seattle, Washington. Thank you for joining me. I'm the executive director and co-founder of Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association. And one of the things of our association is that we really help you to create a new norm in your life, a norm that'll increase your abundance, your liberation, your freedom in your financial life, as well as in your health and also sexually. And that takes a development of relationships for that to happen. And also, then where do you develop these relationships and what kinds of things do you do? And so there's also then the focus on recreation. But one of the things that we work to do is to help you in creating these norms is to create your new norms that involve your community and also your own personal culture. And so, with your personal culture, then that's all the things that's about your life and the journey that you're on and the changes that you make to create a culture within yourself that helps you to thrive in a life where you're designing it and creating it intentionally and developing this sexually liberated, non-monogamous lifestyle of your choosing. And then, but creating a culture, though, what's that about? Or not a culture, excuse me, creating a community. What's that about? You see, because we've in our society, we talk about community, and we talk a lot about community. That's like back in my religious days where we talked a lot about being loving people. And I just woke up one day personally. Don't know if this is any other religious people's experience, but or if they'd even admit it. But I woke up one day personally realizing that I was better at talking about being a loving person than actually being a loving person. And I was better at again, listening to talk about loving people than even to really understanding how to love people. And those are things that we oftentimes we kind of lose track of because we're really putting all the focus on the talk and not so much on the action. Well, this is true in community as well. In that we talk about being part of a community or having my community that I'm involved in, but yet in our culture around us, we are, the great American dream has driven us to a life where we are living lives that are isolated and independent. That's the thing that we're all, I guess, stressed to become is to become independent. Oh, you don't want to be dependent. And I talk about a lot within Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association is increasing your abundance, your liberation, and your freedom, and not increasing your limitations, your restrictions, and your obligations and your dependencies. But the thing is that it also makes a difference as to what the motive is that dependence is being created on. So, for instance, I started to do a little bit of research on this whole idea, and I'll be doing some talks about this later about the Great American Dream. Because the Great American Dream, if you think about it, the Great American Dream, that today when we think of that is having the house with the white picket fence and a spouse and a couple kids. But that's living in total isolation. And who is that great American dream really good for? Living in that kind of total isolation, when you think about it, you become a slave to trying to earn enough money to pay for everything. You become a slave of your life, not become someone who starts to really thrive and enjoy the freedom of an abundant life. But you become a slave to your life. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, think about it. think about where you live, whether you live in an apartment or a condominium, or if you live in a house or whatever your living situation is. Here in Seattle, I actually I own two houses. One house that that I inherited. It's the house that my mom grew up in. And my grandparents lived there until they passed on. And when I wanted to myself have a house, then I went to my grandparents, and who my grandmother was more like a mom to me than my own mother was, and she meant more to me than my own mother did, and so I went to my grandparents, and I said, well, you're getting a little older. They weren't quite retired yet, but I said, you're getting a little older, and you own this piece of property that's just got a bunch of woods and shrubs that you spend a lot of your time and effort taking care of and keeping up, and now having to pay a considerable amount of taxes on that every year. And if you would consider selling that to me, then I'd go ahead and I'd put a home there. You see, because years ago in our culture, in our country, and in other countries around the world, that families come together to support each other and to care for each other and to be close, and so those kind of family situations were like years ago in America on the farm. You'd have 3-4 generations living within a small farm community, and those generations, they would be comprised of moms and dads and grandpas and grandmas and great grandpas and great grandpas, and then also they'd be comprised of aunts and uncles and cousins, and so you'd have this little family community. But that, yes, it's gotten where that, I know my own family, that, I loved my grandma, and I lived next door to my grandma and grandpa until they died. But I've got other family as well. My mom has been deceased many years. I have no clue whoever my dad ever was. So my mom's been deceased many years, and I've got two half sisters, and all of us had different fathers. And my younger sister has been deceased for a number of years, so I've got just one older half sister left surviving, and we're not close at all. And yet, I have this desire to be in a close relationship with people. And so for me, when I became non-monogamous 10, 11 years ago, that one of the things I started to hear about, because I never was familiar with these terms growing up and living my adult life in the church and in religion. I did not grow up in that environment, but as an adult, then never heard about creating your own intentional family and things that I started hearing about when I became a practicing non-monogamous. And so when I became a practicing non-monogamous, I started hearing people talk about these ideas of, because if you're in a relationship then with a couple other people, whether they are deeply romantic, intimate, loving relationships where you've got families that are created out of 3, 4, 5 or more people that form like a, almost like a marriage together. And like that would be considered like a poly family and poly household, or whether you have situations where you've got a spouse, which then is your significant other, you got a long-term committed relationship with, you share maybe assets with, buy cars and homes and things like that with. But then you come along and you'll have maybe a boyfriend, a girlfriend, and they'll come along and live with you. And over time, that person might even change. Sometimes then people are boyfriends or girlfriends for just a short time, and other times they become long-term committed partners. And so this whole idea then of forming your own community And that's one of the things that we want to put a lot of emphasis on in this next year with Non-Monogamous Lifestyle Association. You see, because I'll be talking a lot more about the advantages and the benefits to you of forming your own community. You know that today, like I said, we live lives where the norms of our society have taught us this concept of being so totally isolated and independent and just isolating ourselves. And today, in the world of the world of the computer, we find that people are becoming increasingly more and more isolated. Used to be, you knew who your neighbors were, some 30 years ago. Today, most people maybe know one or two of their neighbors, but that's about it. And so we're finding that we are becoming more and more isolated. You used to be able to take and be more socially involved with the people that you work with as well. And here again, then today, because we're all working on computers, many of us, or if you're not sitting on a computer working on a computer all the time, then the thing is that you are out and about, maybe like a salesperson or a service tech or something, where you're then going out and calling on this company and talking to these people, and we're not forming really any kind of communities and of any significance. And so that's one of the things, though, is that when you start practicing and become an ethically and consensually non-monogamous individual, now that spans a whole gamut of types of relationships. That could be a relationship that is a polyfidelitous relationship, where you got like 3, 4, or 5 people that form like a monogamous type marriage, and that they don't have relationships with anybody else outside of that small nucleus group of individuals. Or you can have something that's a little more open, but it's polyamorous. And that's where then you have multiple relationships that are very intimate and deeply involved with each other. And that's like myself. I have polyamorous relationships. I have my partner here in Seattle that I live with. I have a partner then in Ventura, California that I live with, and I spend half my time with each partner. And so that's a polyamorous relationship, and I'm growing that. In fact, I'm planning on here this next couple of years to really take and put some energy to growing my own intentional family, and to expand that intentional family so that there are more lovers involved in the family. And that's a desire I've had for over a decade, when I started to really understand some of these things and learn about some of these things of intentional families and what have you. And then over the years, I've talked to many people that are polyamorous, but they desire to have more of a community, a larger community. One of the meetings that I had here in my home where we discussed this, probably about 5 years ago now, it was like, what kind of community would you create? What are your different ideas? And one person says, well, I really got this vision of buying an old rundown hotel, and then taking that old rundown hotel and remodeling it, fixing it up, and turning it into a multi-adult polyamorous community where multiple adults are living there within that community. Often, I also, when I first met my other partner I live with in Ventura, she lived here in a suburb of Seattle, and she lived in an apartment complex, and this apartment complex had 4-story buildings, and so each building had something like, let's see, had something like 40 apartment units or something like that. Because they had 3 stairwells. Each stairwell had apartments to the right and apartments to the left. And I think each stairwell had like 3 or 4 apartments, and it's 4 stories. And so you do that math. And this complex, they had probably like 15 of these buildings. And so when you just start doing the math, that's It's like 400 or 500 people that are involved in that. And I started thinking, gee, wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to take and create a community of sexually liberated, ethically and consensually non-monogamous people that were able to come together all in a complex like that. And so then you would be able to take and have a lot of fun together and enjoy other people, meeting other people, and having fun together, doing things. Whether that means that, hey, what are you doing? On 4th of July. Well, we're having a barbecue. Oh, come on over and have a nice time with us. And so whether it be something like that, or hey, what are you doing Friday night? Well, I'm going to this party. It's a swingers party. And want to join me? Hey, yeah, that sounds like fun. Let me go ahead and put that on my schedule, and I'll plan on going. And so there's a lot of different avenues of living within a community like that, when you can actually then be who you are and know that you're living within a community with other people that are just like yourself. They're ethically and consensually non-monogamous. Some of them may be polyfidelitists, and so that they're living as a cluster of 3, 4, 5, 6 or more people, but they're not really going to have sex with people outside of their own cluster. And but they feel a lot more accepted and comfortable living within a community of other ethically and consensually non-monogamous people, instead of living in a community where they're afraid that their neighbors and what have you are going to look at them and judge them and think, well, this is really strange, having these 5 adults all living in the household and sleeping together and stuff. In fact, most of the time it's unknown that they're all sleeping together. I mean, I have a friend here in Seattle that she and her husband have lived with, or her boyfriend has lived with them. I think that now going on, this is their 3rd house that they've been in. And so he just kind of moves to the new house with them, and people just think, well, he's just a roommate. And oftentimes that's what people then think, is it's just, oh, they've got a roommate, but this recent place that they moved to, they decided to go ahead and tell their neighbors that we are a couple with a woman and 2 men. And so, a couple means 2 or more. And when you're thinking like, well, I've got a couple of eggs. Well, how many eggs is that? 2 or more eggs. Well, okay, then couple in a relationship with people, then that means it can be 2 or more. And so, they decided to just go ahead and tell all their neighbors that they are a couple of more than 2. And they didn't get any real problems with that. But so oftentimes, though, that we don't live in a community where we feel that we can really allow ourselves to be authentically ourselves. And so that's where maybe you're really not someone who emotionally wants to be involved with people, but you're more on the spectrum of swinger, or somewhere right in the middle, where you have friends with benefits, but they're ongoing relationships, and so they're not something that's just really super casual as like a swinger, where that you don't really necessarily, some swingers will create friendships and relationships, but you're not going to create, you don't necessarily need to have something that you need to maintain on an ongoing basis. Like even a friendship, I know that here in Seattle, I've got a friend that has been a friend of mine for many years, and I was thinking about this past week that simply because I don't have time to be hanging out with him and doing things anymore. And so, I may see him like once a year now, and instead of seeing him once or more a month like I used to. And so now seeing him once a year, that, it's like we're still friends, but, we just aren't as close of a friend. And so that's where some people were maybe in a non-monogamous situation, where that, yes, you're friends, you can enjoy, come together, and you can have sex, you can enjoy each other and have sex. However, it doesn't mean that you have to hang out all the time together. And so there's all kinds of different, levels and different arrangements when it comes to being ethically and consensually non-monogamous. And you have not only do you have sexual aspects going on, you've got emotional aspects going on, and those emotional aspects can range from something that's deeply loving and committed to something that is just really light and easy, and it's a friendship. But yet some of our friends we care deeply about, and so it's like we can love a friend as deeply as we can love a spouse, a partner, and so there's just all kinds of different aspects of living an ethically and consensually non-monogamous lifestyle. But the idea here is living within a community of people so that you can really enjoy a lot more benefits to your ethically and consensually non-monogamous lifestyle. Now, what are some of those benefits? Like I mentioned, that often today the American dream has got us in this place where we are really isolated, and we are, in fact, that's one of the makes it one of the challenges, one of the difficult things of being ethically and consensually non-monogamous is that it's all just assumed all the people around us are monogamous, and because people who are ethically and consensually non-monogamous are so secretly in the closet. Your next door neighbor may go off on a vacation once every couple of years, and where they are, maybe it's a couple, husband and wife couple, and they go off on a vacation, and all you know is they go on vacation with their family. All they know is they're going on vacation, but in reality, that vacation is a swingers vacation, and it's their time to just let it loose and have non-monogamous fun. And so there are people that are like that. And in fact, I got a friend in Southern California that's he and his wife, that's what they have been doing now for many years, is that they go off on vacations, and he's someone that is well known in his community, and because of being well known in his community, he has not been comfortable meeting anybody that would be considered non-monogamous there within his community, because, oh my gosh, then somebody may find out that we are non-monogamous. But they really, he and his wife, they want non-monogamous relationships. They kind of hunger for having these non-monogamous relationships. They want to be able to have friends that they have sex with, but they're just kind of too afraid to come out of the closet, so to speak, enough to take a chance and actually meet someone that's in their own local area, geographic area. And so they have those concerns. And so for years that they've always stuck to, sometimes they'll go on a weekend getaway just to be able to take and have sex with some other couple or some other individual. And but it's very much in the closet. So that's where you wherever you live, there are people all around you that likely are ethically and consensually non-monogamous, but you have no idea that they are. And so one of the things that we want to start giving you something to think about and creating a new normal for your life is creating a normal where you're able to create a community of people amongst you who are ethically and consensually non-monogamous. But the thing with that, though, is just like if you're let's say that the community that you're creating around you is over a particular breed of dogs. I mean, I know people that are really into the whole dog world, showing their dogs, and they travel with their dogs. Let's just say that your dogs are poodles, and so could be that then you create for yourself a community around you, that your friends, the people that you spend time with, that you do a lot of things with, that they all have poodles, and so then that ends up being a group of people that start to care for each other, and that are there to support one another, that are there to support one another emotionally, they're there to support one another physically. You broke down on the highway somewhere, and it's just like you're needing to call someone for a little bit of help, and so you got a community of people that you're networked with, and so that's what we want to help you to create within your non-monogamous lifestyle. But we want to help you to create. Oh, so what I'm saying is, just like then people that may be involved with poodles, for instance, that they create a community of other people that are enthusiastic about poodles. The thing is, though, is that they're not going to get along with and like everybody who happens to own poodles, because there's a lot of different kinds of people that own poodles. And it's exactly the same thing with people who are ethically and consensually non-monogamous. I certainly found this out when I became ethically and consensually non-monogamous 11 years ago, and I've been in business all my life, and so I'm kind of very conservative. I come from a traditional, very conservative, evangelical, religious background. Kind of like that whole idea of the religious right. Well, that was me, and so I am just. My wife and I spent 2 years transitioning from a marriage where we had been monogamous for 27 years, and then suddenly, after 2 years of working on making and changes in that relationship so that we could have an open relationship, then we became non-monogamous. And after a 2-year transition period, so finally, then we started practicing our non-monogamous lifestyle. That was 11 years ago. And in the Seattle area, there's quite a few groups of people that get together on any given week. There's a non-monogamous group of people gathering together that you can learn about and find out about on the internet, different groups that are out there on the internet. And you can go out and hang out with them at a coffee shop or hang out with them doing something. I've got a friend that puts several times a year, he puts together a putt-putt golf event for non-monogamous people. And they go to a local putt-putt golf, mini golf course, and they all have a great time on a Saturday. He does that a couple times a year. So there's all kinds of different things. But the thing is that I found very quickly that not everybody were people that I wanted to spend a lot of time hanging out with within the non-monogamous community that I was seeing out there. And the reason for that is that I'm someone who is very driven. I'm someone who's always been an entrepreneur, a business person. I'm someone who has been, rather clean cut in appearance. And I don't have any judgment against people that are different than I am, and in fact, I really sometimes, when it comes to people that I enjoy sexually, if a woman has piercings and tattoos, and her regular partner has piercings and tattoos and things like that, that's perfectly fine. They're great, wonderful people. And so, it's not only just about the appearance, it's really about where we are in our mental space as well. In that our mental space, are you someone who is, when I talk a lot about trajectory, someone who's keeping your trajectory tuned up? That you care about your health, so that you're careful about the things that you eat instead of just being sloppy with your eating. And you care about being physically in better shape every year instead of, going downhill very slowly, just gradually until one day it catches up with you. And my God, how did I get so out of shape? How did I get unhealthy? And all this kind of stuff. So people who keep things tuned up in their life with their health. People also who keep their trajectory tuned up in their life financially. That there are people that are maybe looking for opportunities to be able to make more money, and so that they want to better themselves financially. Or also, not only is it just necessarily all about making money, it's about the lifestyle they have. So I know people that don't make tons of money. I know people that live on like $2,000 a month, and yet they have a lifestyle of freedom. And that's what's important to them, is not necessarily having cars and having, big houses and all the kinds of stuff that we're taught about for the American dream. But they want to take and just have a very simple life. And in fact, I'm a minimalist myself, because I've particularly going through this process I'm going through now, where right now I'm about 3 weeks away from having my house put on the market for sale. And in the Seattle area, it's taken a week to 2 weeks at the most to sell a place these days. The demand is very high for houses to be on sale, and the houses go fast. And so I'm moving from my 2,600 square foot home into an 800 square foot home, and so it's a third the size of the house that I'm currently living in. And I have, for the last 35 years that I have been here, I basically I built this property. I developed this property. I mean, I put the home on. I went to my grandparents and said, "Sell me that property," and they did. And I lived next door to them, and till the day they died, and then ended up inheriting their house, which is a little 800 square foot house. And so with that house, then I'm having to clean out a lot of junk, and it's surprising how much junk we accumulate because we've got the space. And I no longer hope I never have this much space again to accumulate so much junk. And so, because I like the peace and the enjoyment of living a very simple life where I'm focused more on the experiences than and being able to have the freedom to pick up and go somewhere, than I am focused on just having more stuff. And that's one of the things we find, that this American dream that we've created, where we all are living so isolated and independent lives. Well, look at an average block where there's houses on there. Let's say there's 20 houses on that block. Two sides. One side is 10 houses. The other side is 10 houses. So you got 20 houses on a block. How many lawnmowers do you think that block would have? And yet, if they had more where they're sharing those lawnmowers, don't you think then there would be need for fewer lawnmowers? They just need to have some way of being able to share that so everybody could get their lawns mowed. Wouldn't that be more efficient? Or everybody shared a service where they had one person that came in and mowed the 20 houses, the lawns on the 20 houses, and took care of that for them. And so wouldn't that be a lot more efficient? I mean, there's not only lawnmowers, but then other things like, in the idea of like the house that I have here, it's 2,600 square feet, and I've got 2 bathrooms, and 2 bathrooms are wonderful to have that many bathrooms, but are they really utilized that much? No. I had 3 refrigerators, 3, and 2 freezers. Okay. And so 3 refrigerators and 2 freezers. And it's kind of like, oh, that's ridiculous. My kitchen has a stove, and a stove. I mean, that's I don't know how much nice stoves cost these days, but probably like $600, $700, $800 or more, $2,000. I know it'd be easy to spend $2,000 on a really nice stove, and so but you spend all that money on a stove for how much time is actually that stove used. And so by being able to create a community where you're sharing these resources, it helps to increase your standard of living. So this house that I'm moving into, it's 800 square foot house. Then once I get moved over there, I'm going to take, when I am spending my time here in Seattle, then I spend about half my time here in Seattle and then half my time in Ventura. And so when I'm here in Seattle, I'm going to be starting to make progress putting a 3,000 square foot addition onto the house. It's going to be a 2-story addition. There's 1 bathroom in there now, and I'll take and add probably 3 more bathrooms, so there'll be 4 bathrooms. But it's going to be a house then I'm creating a community. I still have to find out from the city. I've had some communication with them, but how many biologically unrelated adults can live within one household if the square footage is enough? And from what I'm thinking, it's going to be 8 couples, and so 16 people. And so think about that. Create a small community then with whether it be 6 couples, so 12 people, or 8 couples would be 16 people. And create a small community so that you've got 1 kitchen facility. Yes, it's going to be a little more upscale and a little bigger than just a standard house that would have, but you've got that one facility that's being shared and utilized between 8 couples. Same thing like the bathrooms. You got 4 bathrooms that are being shared and utilized between 8 couples. This is going to be a community that I'm creating that is going to be a sexually liberated, ethically and consensually, non-monogamous, clothing optional community. People who aren't hung up about seeing each other naked. People aren't hung up about seeing each other have sex. People who aren't hung up about having sex with each other. And so you create a community like this, and then also there's other things. You want to be able to create a community that has people that, like I said, that are really people who I feel are more like-minded, the people that are who are interested in creating businesses, so that as a community, you got 16 people living together as a community, then you can start creating a business together as a community as well. And so there's lots of opportunities to be doing things like that. But you can also share things like a boat. I've got a 20-foot boat that has a sleeping space for 2 people, and then the kind of the chairs on the outside of there's a canvas that covers it and everything. That there's sleeping spaces in there for 2 more people, so it can sleep comfortably 4 people. And so particularly if it's one couple and 2 kids or something like that, but it can comfortably sleep 4 people. But then we're going to have being able to share a motorhome as well. And so instead of having one household, you ever see these houses where they got a motorhome parked next to the house, in their drive, and that motorhome spends most of the time parked right there next to the house, and once in a while they get a chance to go use that motorhome. Well, how much money do they spend not only buying the motorhome, but then, like in Washington State, the license tabs, the taxes on a motorhome are expensive every year. And then you've got insurance on that. And then you've got the maintenance and upkeep cost on that as well. And so why not have 8 couples that can come together in community, whether they live together in one facility like what I'm creating, or they're ethically and consensually non-monogamous couples, but they come together within community, and they have things that they end up creating more of a sharing experience, where maybe they form a corporation to be able to share a motorhome, or maybe share a 40-foot boat sitting on the lake, or in my case here in Washington State, Puget Sound, or in Ventura, out at the marina that's heading out to the ocean and things like that. There's all kinds of wonderful things that can be accomplished when you create things as a community. Another idea is just about camping equipment. You can have the best camping equipment available when if you're an individual, like we have the great American dream, we all isolate ourselves and we're all independent. We've got our own little house, and then got my spouse and my little kids running around, and that kind of a situation. Then if you want to go camping, most people just buy low cost or medium cost camping gear. Well, if you could take and create a community where maybe once every 2 months, you got a community of 8 couples, for instance, or 8 households, or 8 families, or whatever you put together, that are ethically and consensually non-monogamous. And so then you go out and you buy really top-of-the-line camping gear, and maybe even something where instead of going to a campground where you're getting a camping space, you can go and reserve the group space, because you've got the really great equipment, and then all you need is a couple big tents, and you can all come together and have a great time sleeping together, and have a wonderful camping experience. And so this is the whole idea, is that community, you can increase your abundance, your liberation, your freedom. You can increase your standard of living. Now, it's some great things that you can do within a community. However, now, one of the things is that we've all bought off on this great American dream idea, which has gotten us to isolate ourselves and gotten independent. And so we have lost the social skills necessary to function within a community, and so it's like people get this idea, well, I wouldn't want to live with other people, well, like the house that I'm going to be doing the project on over the next year, next door that I'm moving into. I'm putting in this 3,000 square foot addition, and there will be private space for every individual there. And so even if you're part of a couple, you're still going to have your own personal private space. You'll also have place, so if you're a couple, then that you'll be able to take and have friends over and entertain them. You'll have a little cooking area. If you've ever been on a cruise, and these cruise ships these days, there's some of the cruise ships that'll have what they call a deluxe cabin. And these deluxe, I've owned a travel business and been on a lot of cruises, and so I had also many opportunities to tour the ships when they're in port, like when they come into Seattle to go to Alaska. Then I would get invited to come onto the ship for have a lunch and have a great lunch, and then be able to take and tour the whole ship before it would leave on their trip to Alaska. And then I would get a chance to tour the ship, and then I'd have to get off. Excuse me. And I'd have to get off the ship before it headed off to Alaska. But I'd have a special pass that they knew who I was and all that kind of stuff. And so I'd be able to get on the ships. And these cruise ships, they are marvelous at really utilizing space and creating and designing that space so that it maximizes functionality. And some of these suites that are 300 to 350 square foot, I mean, that's not a huge space. And so 300 to 350 square foot, and yet it's enough space to be able to have 4, 6, 8 people that you can entertain. There's a little cooking area where you can have food. Then there's an area for a refrigerator, of course. You can have it for drinks. And so it's surprising how well they use the space. They have a little desk area for working and entertaining, and the sitting areas and stuff. And so again, just utilizing that space that you can then create within a household, a community where everybody can really have a great space, and so that they can go off and be in their space. But at the same time, you can also come together with other people who are ethically and consensually non-monogamous, so that you can have sex together, you can have a meal together, you can watch a movie together, you can play games together, you can play cards together, you can create a business together, you can work together, you can do laundry together. Maybe you're going to work on the cars this weekend. You work on cars together. And that's part of a community, and that's part of the thing in ways of developing the skills again, in order to go from being this independent American dream where you're isolating yourself to actually starting to become a community, is spending time working and playing together. Now, playing, certainly that can mean having sex and having a very nice time playing and having sex together. But then it's important to play outside of just having sex as well. Maybe going for a hike. I'd love to go hiking. Or maybe, I'd like to learn how to go kayaking. I'd love to meet some people that have kayaks. I'd love to go out kayaking, and they kind of help me to get into that. And so I'd love to go out and go kayaking, and most of you have followed my videos. I'm a bicyclist, and whether that's going for a short ride for just for 5 or 10 minutes off to the grocery store and back, or going for a full day ride where I'm going to ride 100 miles. And, that to me, that's a great fun. And so start creating community around your recreational interest, but also around your lifestyle. And so your lifestyle means that within that community that you're creating, it can be coming together and having a co-living facility like what I'm creating. And every one of the couples that are there, they'll actually, over time, they'll buy ownership so that there'll be 8 shares in the community. If there's room for 8 couples, then there'll be 8 shares, and everybody can then buy a share. And then that makes it the affordable living, of the project. When I'm done, I estimate it'll be worth about $800,000. So every share would be then $100,000. Well, for $100,000, and the way that the decor is going to be, and the amenities, the facilities are going to be involved there. They're going to be able to take and increase their standard of living, have an amazing life living there. And the mortgage being $100,000. Yes, you can. There's a special kind of mortgage for people who live within a co-living situation where they then own the mortgage for one share of that. It's a special mortgage that they have for that. So that when, if you get a job transfer or you just no longer want to live there, you can go ahead and you can either rent the space out, or you can go ahead and sell your space. And the real estate agent, just like any other condominium or any other home that they would sell, then they sell co-living spaces, and the real estate agent then gets a commission off of selling that. But as an owner, then you also have the ability to, as it increases in equity and as it increases in value, you have the ability then to participate in that. So that if there is ever a time when you sell that, then you have the ability to go ahead and profit from that. Or we're also going to provide some of the couples, we're going to provide them an opportunity to buy 2 shares or 3. Maximum 3 shares will be offered, but they can buy 2 or 3 shares. So for instance, then that 2 or 3 shares means that if they bought 2 shares, they can go ahead and have a place for a girlfriend, boyfriend, another couple that they move in. They can rent it out to another couple on a long-term basis. They can create an Airbnb out of it, where they can generate income from renting that out. Imagine being able to promote on Airbnb. There are a few places that do this, and so it's very popular. Hey, we're really close. In our case, we're less than 2.5 miles from the SeaTac International Airport, and so just imagine, that you've got this listed on Airbnb, being this close to the airport, where we've got all the major transportation options very close by. And so you say, hey, we're a clothing optional, sexually liberated, ethically and consensually non-monogamous lifestyle. Come and spend a week or a weekend enjoying our lifestyle and learning about it, and come and rent this space. And so, that those options then are available. Now on Airbnb, you can even also take and have where you've got camping space in your backyard. And people are starting to create backyard camping spaces that they're being rented out through Airbnb. And so we're creating this community where it's a clothing optional, sexually liberated, ethically and consensually non-monogamous community that opens up lots of different options and opportunities to the people that are involved in this. But the thing is that for you, and this is the purpose of today's video, is to help you just start to really thinking about how you can create your own community and create some new norms in your life, and getting away from this norm of the American dream. That the American dream, who was that created for? That was created for the industrialist. That was created because they needed to get people to get off of the farm and into the cities where they wouldn't be farming, and instead they would be needing jobs to go out and buy everything for their living, their livelihood. And it was really created as a way, because as the Industrial Revolution took place in our country, then companies that started up, they not entrepreneurs having a couple small few employees, but when they really start having these companies, bigger companies, they needed to employ people. And when they needed to employ people, if their businesses are all small, independent, family-owned businesses, where maybe there'd be anywhere from 2 to 5 people that worked within the business, but we need 25 employees for our company in this particular location. How are we going to do that? Well, we got to bring people off of the farms. We got to create this great American dream, to be independent and to be self-sufficient. And so they create this great American dream that really was about creating more dependency. so that you are going to be dependent on a paycheck. No, you can't grow your own food anymore like you did on the farm. No, you can't can your food. No, you can't go out and hunt for your food. You don't have time because you got to go to work. You can't go out fishing and hunting and growing your food and all these kinds of things. So part of this was that the great American dream was really pushed on people. This idea and this concept, it was pushed by the industrialized, the people that needed to hire people for jobs. They couldn't grow their companies without being able to hire people and give people jobs. And so they had to have a way of selling this idea, the great American lifestyle, the great American dream, you know, is to isolate you. It ends up being isolating yourself. And you're really, it's about dependency, really. And so one of the things then is that co-living situations will help to create a greater independence and a greater level of freedom, because if you're living within a community, then you can take and have a greater standard of living at a less reduced cost. It allows you to save more money and to invest more money. And when you're investing more money, like one of the opportunities that we're going to be providing is this. I've got this. I guess I don't want to really let the bag out of the I don't want to divulge too much here, but we got this we want to help you if you are a homeowner and you will start thinking about this idea of community. And then we want to help you, or if you are somebody who's got a little extra money, possibly an investor, like people that will come and be part of this household, they'll be given the opportunity then to have a pool that they invest into to create other households that are just like this household. And that there are a lot of homes in America today that are 2 and 3 bedroom homes that were built in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and maybe as recently as the 60s, but more likely, during that whole real baby boom generation during the 30s, 40s, and 50s, when the housing craze went on like crazy, and where that people were coming in off the farm, and they were being sold this great American dream, that we've got to have our own home and be independent of our families and so forth. Well, a lot of those houses now, that you can buy them, like the house next door that I own, that you could, if I were to sell that house on the market right now in the Seattle market, which is the real estate values are very high in Seattle, but it's a small house and it's in the suburbs. It's not in Seattle properly. We're about a half hour out of town, and but if I were to sell that, it'd sell for probably about $350,000. And so you can buy a place like that for $350,000. And then you can put $200,000 into it, like what I'm going to be doing, and taking it from around 800 square feet, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, and you can then take that into a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot facility that has multiple bedrooms and multiple baths. And we have some people we're working with to be able to put some design concepts together on all this, and so that if you live in a 2 or 3 bedroom house like that, you want to start creating community, you'll be able to have that opportunity to do that. And if you want to be part of that community, living within that kind of situation, we want to provide those kinds of opportunities as well. But think about though that yes, what this could do in increasing your lifestyle, and also just making your life easier. Now, then we have gotten away from this being able to have the skills necessary to work and live within a community. And so that's where being able to have a community that you can get started with, where you're then spending time doing things where you're working, and maybe you're living or maybe you're not living, but if you start putting together some projects. For instance, one of the projects that I don't know if you're familiar with these teardrop trailers, that they can be towed virtually behind almost any kind of car. And there's some of these teardrop trailers that are really marvelous outfits. Well, I have made contact with a company that makes kits for these teardrop trailers, and they custom design a kit for our ethically and consensually non-monogamous lifestyle. And so for Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, we'd have a custom designed teardrop trailer kit, and so that you would be able to take and go out there and get together and create a community of maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other couples, where then you all go together and you can then spend $2,000, and then you can build your own teardrop trailer. And so you come together as a work project, build your own teardrop trailer, and maybe after you build one, you're all having a great time together, and you say, hey, but we can only go out. I mean, some people can go out. One couple would have the teardrop trailer, and then everybody else would have to have tents. And so, you can then take and say, let's build another teardrop trailer. And so these are some of the things that we would like to be able to help you to create these community type activities that, through using recreation and through using business and through using working together and living together and co-living situations, where we start to pull together and have a community. But then, like I said before, back to the poodle example, not everybody are going to be people. Not all ethical and consensual non-monogamous people are people that you necessarily want to spend a lot of time hanging out with. You don't want to spend a lot of time going camping with them, or a lot of time living in the same household with them. And so that's one of the things that with Non-Monogamous Lifestyle Association, we really do focus on it as part of what we talk about, is to increase your abundance, your liberation, and your freedom financially, also with your health, and then also sexually. And so it draws a particular kind of individual to us, attracts that a part of the community that's out there. Not all of the community, but it is designed. We talk about designing your own life. Well, when we sat down and designed Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association, then we really thought about all this and purposely did some things to design it so that it would attract people that generally are educated people. It doesn't mean that you have to have a college degree. You can be a very educated person that all you did is graduate from high school, or maybe you got a GED, but you're very educated because you continue to educate yourself. And probably a lot of times self-education is so much more valuable and so much better than formal education. If you got a PhD, oftentimes people that are self-educated, they can have a lot higher degree of expertise and more interesting to listen to, that's for sure, to have a conversation with somebody who has had 10 years of self-education than to have 10 years of formal education, and they've got a PhD and a title and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just part of creating a community of people that are like-minded people that care about their health, that care about their financial standing, that care about their lifestyle. Not so much as the important part is not the finances part of it, but it's the important part is the lifestyle that they have out of it. And so, that they start to learn that it's not in buying a bunch of stuff that you find happiness, but oftentimes it's being more of a minimalist. And minimalism is not about having no stuff or having to live a life of poverty and be poor. That's not what minimalism is at all. And so one of these days, maybe we should have a guest. There's a number of people out there that are in the non-monogamous community that are doing some great things with teaching minimalism. And so maybe one of these days we should have someone come and do a teaching on that for us. But or I'll just keep talking about it more myself. But the thing is that the minimalism says that invest in people and experiences and not in just a bunch of things. And I certainly found that out in my life, just having a bunch of things. I mean, my gosh, I've had like 5 or 6 pickup truck loads now of stuff to just take and get rid of at the dump. you know? And it's incredible the things over a lifetime that you start to collect that suddenly you have to get rid of this stuff. And it's really stuff that just doesn't serve us any longer. It doesn't serve us very well, but maybe we bought that because we thought it was something I always wanted to have. And so anyway, that's part of this whole thing with being the American dream and being individual and independent and isolated. That there's no one there to help you to reason through making these impulse purchases and the things that you think that you want to have, that you need to have in your life. But when you start to live within a community, that you start to also have people that help you to reason through things, and so that you have the things that really serve your life, but you don't end up having stuff that doesn't serve your life. And so again, then I want to encourage you to give thought of the idea of living within community and having a life as part of a community, and not isolated and not just all independent and the standard American dream you've been sold. And by starting to come together in community, you start to develop the social skills that we often have, most of us have lost because we don't live in community anymore. And so you start to develop those social skills that you need to be able to take, for instance, then live within a co-housing situation where, like what I'm creating, eight couples that will be living in this household and enjoying a lifestyle there that is going to be a great lifestyle to be able to enjoy. And so that's something that maybe you would like to be a part of. If it is, then I hope you'll stay in touch with me. But at this point, though, just want to, again, plant some seeds in your mind and helping you to realize that, I talked in one last thing I want to talk about in community. You see, when you isolate yourself and you're being independent and having this great American dream, then you start to lose your own dream, and you start to just kind of level out in your life, and you don't keep growing personally and keep challenging yourself personally. And so that's one of the wonderful things that you can accomplish when you start living and working within community, is that you'll start to grow again. Interpersonal growth, spiritual growth, intellectual growth, mental growth, emotional growth. And so you start to grow as a person, and you start to develop better social skills. And that's just one of the benefits that can come along from, again, living within community, and living within community where you can be your authentic, sexually liberated, ethical and consensual, non-monogamous self, instead of living in a community where you keep having to go back to that non-monogamous self. And so, it's kind of like you got this sexually liberated, ethically and consensually non-monogamous self, being and life that you want to have and create, that you maybe partially live now. And then you got this other life that you live probably like 90% of the time, and that's the life as a vanilla monogamous person. And so we want to help you to start to make that transition, take that journey where you're moving from being this 90% of this vanilla monogamous person. You're moving in that direction of spending more of your time of living this sexually liberated, ethically and consensually non-monogamous lifestyle. And that lifestyle isn't all about sex. That lifestyle is about being part of a community where you're working together and creating business together. You're creating maybe, like I said, co-oping together to have a motorhome, or to do a co-living situation, or to just on a vacation, going on a vacation together as a cooperative community group. And so lots of different opportunities and functions of that building a community. But when you build your community, just draw a line right now, like I did when I moved from Seattle to Ventura with my partner, Kat. We drew a line and we said, okay, this is where we're going to reinvent this part of our life. And we're not going to keep having this whole vanilla thing going on. In Seattle, both of us, Kat and I, were very actively involved in the poly community. But the thing is that we're involved in a very vanilla way. We're not in a sexually liberated way by any means, but a very vanilla way. Yes, people would maybe date other people they meet within that little circles and what have you, but it wasn't the same as really having a life that was sexually liberated and that is increasing abundantly in the sexual area and increasing in the liberation of yourself sexually and increasing with the freedom that you have in exploring and experiencing sexually. And so we drew that line when we moved to Ventura, and we said, we're not going to create any more of that vanilla world where we spend all of our time with vanilla people. So we like to go hiking, for instance, But at the end of the day, at the end of the hike, I'd like to be able to then go and have sex with the people I'm hiking with. And, or maybe when we hike somewhere where we go up there and an orgy breaks out or something, And so there's just some wonderful things that you can enjoy with creating more of a community that allows you to live your life as a sexually liberated, ethically and consensually non-monogamous individual. It doesn't have to impact your vanilla world and vanilla life with your work situation and your family situation and all that. It doesn't have to interfere with that, but it's a conscious decision to say, okay, here I'm drawing the line. I'm going to not spend my energy creating this anymore. Instead, I'm going to come over here and create more of this. And that is in creating your ethically and consensually non-monogamous community that is a sexually liberated community, and it's a community of people that focus not just on the sex part. I mean, that's a swingers group, but the focus also on the part of co-creation in developing and co-creation that comes in many different ways. You co-create with people with your health. So, for instance, hey, yeah, let's get together, regularly on Saturdays and go hiking. Or let's get together regularly on Saturdays and go bicycling. So that you're doing recreational things that are good for your health, but you're doing this with people that are like-minded. And these people are like-minded, that they also have business minds or a business sense, or they'd like to maybe increase their income. And so they're thinking about getting involved in businesses, or maybe a home-based business, maybe a business where they will have a couple of partners and they'll go in, they'll open up a place in an office space, or all kinds of different possibilities when you start to create the communities that you desire. And that's the thing with the energy that I talk about in a lot of my videos, that how you attract people to you. If you have the right energy, you will attract the people to you in your life. So if you want to create a business, maybe that's like a tech business, and you're going to open up a little office space, or start out of an office in your home, and all get together on computers and do these different projects and what have you. Or maybe it's more of a business of you're going to be, you love to cook and you want to cater. You want to cater events and parties, or as a hobby, I love making chocolate, and I love making chocolate from the bean to the bar, and so I'd love to be able to take and within the community I'm building next door, have some of those couples that say, yeah, I love chocolate, and this is really interesting what you're doing here. I've got all the equipment for small batch chocolate making. And they say, well, yeah, let's go ahead and do more of this and create great chocolate, and then we can sell some great chocolate. And the same thing with coffee. I love my coffee, and I have a small batch coffee roaster. It's a commercial coffee roaster that I've roasted coffee commercially with. And and so that's just a kind of a wonderful business sideline thing that people could be involved in as well. And so just start coming together as a community. What is the community that you want to come bring together? And if you learn more about the energy to do that, I talk a lot about it in my videos. Just watch more videos. about attraction, the power of attraction, creating the right energy to attract the right people to you that then partner with you and co-create with you. Because the universe will attract people to you like a magnet that have very similar interests if you get your energy right. And so I hope that you'll learn a lot about that in the other videos that I've made in the past and also the videos that I'll be making in the future. And so thanks a lot, though, for listening to me today. I hope that you've learned a little bit about what we're about as Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association. But if you haven't got on our email list, then click on the link that's down below and get on our email list so that you can really stay up on top of things that are going on with Non-Monogamous Lifestyle Association. So this is Non-Monogamous Mark, wishing you a great week ahead, and thanks for listening.